Welcome to EIPIP Meeting 81. I have shared agenda in chat. Today we have a few items to be discussed from issues and pull requests. Those are new. And one from the past discussion meeting, we will go ahead with EIPS Insight update and EIP Editing Office Hours update. Starting with the first item, which is to discuss open issues and pull requests. Here we have proposal 6953, which has recently been added as a informational EIP to the repository. I suppose the question that was being asked in this PR is which direction we would like to move in. Should we move ahead in the direction of making this proposal as living, or we should move in the direction of making this proposal to final? Tim unfortunately could not join the meeting, but he has left his comment suggesting that he may not have very strong opinion in either direction, but a weak preference going towards final. I'll be curious to hear what EIP editors think and what is the recommendation for author here.
I think living proposals are very, very rare. I think we only have two. So I'd prefer if we went in the direction of like, this is a list of all the transition specifiers up to today, and then that can go to final. And then when there's a new one introduced, it can require the previous one and introduce the new one. And I think that would probably be the most EIPIP or EIP friendly way of doing it.
I agreed. I think it's in Tim's intention that only he will create a new EIP if that mechanism changes. Therefore, final seems to be what he intended to, a good categorization of his intended status.
All right, I can see a +1 from Gajendra Singh on the chat as well. So just for record purposes, we would be moving ahead in the direction of final. So I believe there is a pull request open to move this proposal to the review status.
There's just one thing. Can I also bring to the attention of the other EIP editors that this is categorized as informational? I wonder, is it more of a meta or informational one? If it talk about mechanisms that's binding?
So if it, so my rule for meta is if it affects the EIP process itself, I think that's probably the only way we can have a clear difference between the two. But
so core EIP, so activating for hard fork used to be one of the main use case for meta, and here this one talk about activation mechanisms, and if it's binding seems to fall into the same category. So in the context, using that as using category, I think it seems too more on the meta side. But I also be open to other approach. Information is totally fine, but it just make this not as strong as it actually are.
yeah, so if a new proposal were to come along with a different activation mechanism, I don't think we would stop them from using it. Like if so I don't think it's strictly a meta proposal. But it also could be a core proposal, since technically core proposals are anything relevant to core dev discussions. And I think we can argue about this in circles forever. I don't care. If we just want to put our thoughts on the PR, I'm okay with that.
It's okay. Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion, so I can suggest this. It could be a meta if they want. If not, then I'm totally okay for keeping it informational, and we can defer it to the team's decision. Is that a good consensus?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I would like to be sure, like Sam, did I get you right? You are also suggesting to move it in the direction of being final, because going through the proposal, it looks like we are trying to record the activation timestamp for all the upgrades. And my assumption is it could have future upgrades timestamp added to the proposal as well.
Yeah, I think we'd have to recommend that he remove that part.
Okay, so we might have to remove the table that has been added here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and it seems to be, I mean, in my mind, like the way I'm reading the proposal right now, it seems to me more informational than meta, because this has already happened in the past and it is just a documentation of something that has happened in the past, but not that is something to come up to suggest any change either to the Ethereum protocol or to the EIP process. So I believe by the definition of meta EIP, it is probably not qualifying to be added as meta, but it's going more towards information. It's a piece of information. But yeah, open to what editors decide here.
Yeah, I think we can remove the table of the hard forks of the mainnet, because I mean that's what Node PR title anyway says. It says what are the types of hard forks that are there in Ethereum. So anyway, this information is stored somewhere else in Ethereum Git repositories. Maybe a reference to that Git repository could be made over here.
Okay. All right. So probably what we can get from this call is like people are in agreement for moving it to the review status and probably moving in the direction of final. There could be some changes required in the proposal, and that if someone can leave in the comment so author can follow and do the needful. Any more comment on this particular item? Thank you. All right. Very well. Moving on to the next one is an issue which suggests that unlicensed code should not be allowed to be included in any proposal. I believe this discussion is again stemmed with the discussion of copyright, like what kind of information we can add to the documentation of proposal. And the proposer here is suggesting that copyright sentences should not be added, elements should not be added to the EIP, and we should be including license free, like CC0 should be there. So we should not have things like that. I wonder, do we have any kind of documentation anywhere in EIP1 or anywhere which suggests this, and we can share this with authors so they cannot do this mistake if this is a mistake? Or I suppose there is another question that is coming up from this issue is, can we have a bot check? Is that possible?
Yeah, so there's a PR for this for license checker. I'm just trying to find it now. There is there it is. There is a bit of a disagreement between myself and Panda. I think we should allow any open source license that doesn't impose restrictions on downstream implementation. So we could allow Apache, MIT, and a few other ones, but not GPL. And Panda is of the mind that we should only allow CC0. But regardless, we definitely should turn on the license checker to prevent unlicensed bits of source. There's the pull request in chat.
5379. That's good to know that we already have a pull request for this license checker. But again, is it covering all sort of licenses or only CC0?
So I think as written, it only allows CC0.
All right.
I
Yeah, please go ahead.
I left a comment in September 2022. My position is that I'm okay with requiring any assets to be put in EIP repository as CC0. Coming from a author and implementer background myself, I also want to give other authors and implementers the options to not doing so by allowing linking from asset page, from asset file, because it's very hard for people to put an assets in this very strict license requirement while also allowing them to reference to it. So we could either relax our link policy to allow linking to implementation that is less that is less open, or we can we can not require CC0 for assets, but not like if we do both, it basically damages the ability for authors to be more open to share those work with us.
So it's not just whether we can distribute it question, right? Like we could distribute, for example, GPL code, and it would be not a problem for the EIP's repository. But a reference implementation that's GPL, as an example, there are other kinds of licenses that would also be a problem, but a reference implementation that's GPL infects the downstream projects so that they also have to be GPL. So if we allow reference implementations that are like non-free, so you can see the source code, but you can't use the source code. I think MariaDB has an example of that license, or maybe Mongo. I don't remember. One of the database projects has an example of that, where you can look at the source, but you can't use it. Like those kind of licenses are not useful in a reference implementation because like they're basically a copyright trap for implementers, and I don't think we want to encourage that. So I'd be against allowing any license that imposes restrictions on downstream implementations.
So I'm totally with you on those, since could potentially be a copyright trap, and if we include them in our distribution, that could be that could cause those problems. We could be facilitating these kind of trap. My argument is that, however, we should be allowed not distributing them, but reference to them, like create a reference link to them. For example, in our current policy, if we only restrict to CC0, people would not even be able to link to Go Ethereum as a reference implementation, would not be able to put Go into Ethereum code to the repository as a reference implementation. Now, I'm totally with you that we should not put Go Ethereum code into the EIP repository and redistribute it because it's on GPL license. But I think we should give author the freedom instead to point to other code that already exists, that has massive adoptions as reference implementation to say, hey, by the way, there exist other implementations, and if you want, you can check it out, but you're totally up to yourself to make your own, because we don't want to distribute those. So our link policy restricted us from being able to let people show other type of implementation. And also, I think there's this implied difference that I and you seem to hold with me. Can I verify that with you? That when you say reference implementation, you assume that people is going to copy and use that. That's the main use case for reference implementation, where I think reference implementation is only to show how it's done, and then majority of the people will decide whether they want to go down the same route or re-implement it in a different way. Is that a difference that I implied? Is that a right assumptions of how we see it differently?
It's close. So I see anyone who reads the reference implementation and writes a new program as creating a derivative work of the reference implementation, which is an incredibly old school legal view of software development. But a lot of companies, don't let their employees look at GPL code for exactly that reason. So there is an argument to be made that looking at for example, GPL reference implementation will force all like derivative implementations. So anything that uses a similar kind of program or algorithm as in the reference implementation might be like subject to the license of the reference implementation.
I think that's none of us are legal expert, and I think you make your point. I do know that that's one school of thoughts There's also another school of thoughts that says, hey, this doesn't seem like a copyright infringement, and this doesn't seem like a patent protected under patent, so it's okay to look. So, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe we should consult someone who has the expertise. My point here is that if we hold difference in this way, wouldn't it be okay to revisit the link policy to say otherwise you wouldn't be able to let people put reference implementation. So my strong position is that we should let people share reference implementation as much as possible, because otherwise it doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense and doesn't help we advance the open standardization. So that's what my strong position is. And then we can choose either ask them to either relax the copyright requirement, or we can relax the link policy. But if we restrict both, then it's very hard for people to provide with us the reference implementation.
So yeah, so that's why I think we should not relax the link policy and allow more licenses than just CC0, but not going so far as to allow GPL.
Yeah, I think that's a good direction to go. I seems to be agreeing by, and I also want to saw that Greg raised hand.
Greg.
So
do we have sorry to not know, but do we have an actual case right now of a GPL software that somebody wants to link to?
No, we have. So let's bring this back to the actual discussion at hand. Somebody accidentally committed code with the unlicensed SPDX identifier, which means that, technically we can't even be sharing it.
Right.
So it's just about adding a bot to catch some of those problems.
Okay. I think we should have a general policy that we prefer proposals that have actually been implemented. And those actual implementations may well be GPL, proprietary, otherwise not something we would want to publish, but preventing someone from linking to a working implementation does not help the quality of the proposal. But I'm quite happy to take things one case at a time rather than try to make up a rule in advance. But my general attitude on each case is if there's an existing implementation, the author should link to it. It just makes for a better proposal. And if somebody feels that looking at a proprietary implementation is legally dangerous, they shouldn't follow the link.
Victor, please, I see your hand raised as well.
Yeah, so one example that I can think of, I should probably find links because we don't let link, is there were authors who attempt to link to Go Ethereum, which is currently the most adopted execution. I don't need to explain to you, but maybe audience who are watching the recording. And it was rejected on the ground that we don't allow links to outside of EIP and other approved sources. But let's assume instead they want to put those files into our EIP repository under a /assets. It's not allowed because Go Ethereum is under LGPL. And therefore, even one of the most adopted clients would not be able to be, and also supported by Ethereum Foundation with grants, it would not be able to be put in the EIP repository. And that is one of the example of what this two rules together will prevent from. I'm done speaking.
Yeah, of
Yes,
course
Sam.
it can't go in the repository, but a link to a to a link to the relevant commit hash, and that should be acceptable for.
Sam, if you want, you can speak.
All right, so let's I think the license discussion is a much bigger topic. Perhaps we should open a discussion thread on which licenses we want to allow. But I think we can all agree that we don't want to allow unlicensed code in the EIPS repository. Is that correct?
That is
Right.
correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Me too.
so
We don't want copyright trap.
we don't want authors accidentally sending code that they shouldn't be sending. So I'm going to make a recommendation that we turn on license checker, but we make it very broad and we allow everything except unlicensed.
I would
And
like to share something here. I recently was in a conversation with the author of 5773. I think he suggested a very good idea in which we can probably share reference implementation even if we are not including that in the part of proposal. So what they did is like they came up with this an npm package for their code having reference implementation and shared it with one of the hackathon. I think there was some ZK related hackathon going on. So they shared with the participants and they were using it. So when they are using the package, they may have to pay the license, but if they don't want to pay the license, they can definitely go to the specs that is specified in the EIP and make use of that and implement the proposal. So I am assuming here that there is a way out that we will be able to share multiple reference implementation by not making them a part of the standard, the repository. In standard, we just mentioned the specs, which should be generic and be available for everyone.
can I also share something on that direction?
Yeah, please go ahead.
If I may shamelessly promote this effort that I'm promoting, which is an open source effort to allow authors to contribute their reference implementation of ERCs. And it will be in a NPM package, which we currently packaged in. So if anyone is watching this and think it's a good idea to share your reference implementation, please do. And also we want to know how to license this as well. Currently allow CC by 0, but we are on the fence of whether we want to be dual license or triple license so that it can maximize the chance to be accepted in any repository, because CC0 is meant to be close as possible to public domain, if I understand it correctly. But now that it's given a name, it's no longer considered as fully compatible with public domain, it seems to me, in some of the cases. So we don't know how to be as even broad as possible than CC0. So in that ground, I'll ask what EIP editors think, but also just to bring awareness to this effort as well. ERC ref, search for it. Yeah. I'm done.
All right. I think we can take Sam's suggestion here that for this particular issue that is there should be a bot, and the pull request is already there. So we can go ahead and do that, activate the bot, and we should open a thread on Fellowship of Ethereum Magician to discuss which kind of licenses should be allowed with this bot checker, like the license checker. And we can probably have elaborated discussion when we get some more feedback, because in this closed group, I think we have repeated on this discussion multiple times. Sounds fair. Anyone would like to add anything, maybe to wrap up this conversation? Okay. So yeah, I think we should have that as a summary for this issue 7027, and let's move on to the next one. So there are, oh, please go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry, Greg, do you want to add anything? Okay. So the next items that we have here are edits to final EIP. So there are two proposals, EIP 4955 and 4804. Both are in final status, and we have received a pull request to make small edits to it. So taking the first one, which is PR 6937, I wonder what editors think. Should we go ahead and merge that PR, or we can let the proposer know that we cannot make any changes because this proposal is already in final status?
It's a pretty clear typo for 4955, so I'm okay with that.
Anyone here objecting? Okay. So is it waiting for anyone's approval? Like,
Yeah,
or-
it needs one more. So I think the way it's set up right now is to edit a final EIP, it requires author and 2 editors. So if one other editor for, I think it's ERC, yeah, ERC. So that'll be Greg, Matt, myself, or Panda. If one of you could approve, it'll go
Yeah,
through.
I think Victor as well, right, Victor?
Yeah, I added,
okay.
I do it. I don't know if it approved it, and then it's definitely gonna be EIP validator blocked. But
Yeah,
I
it just
approved it.
I'll merge it. I just need I want to follow the process.
Yeah, we can get one more approval if we have plenty of editors here. So if one first can add approval, then
Yeah,
that can
it's
be
done.
merged. Perfect. So the next one is PR number 6860, which is with respect to proposal 4804. Any thoughts here?
I'll take a look.
Yeah, that's a no. That's a no from me. That's a significant update to a final proposal.
And it's changing specification. I think you can't change specification in a final, which is a no-no.
You are allowed to add clarifications, if I remember my EIP 1 correctly. So theoretically, this could be allowed, but I tend to not.
I think they are adding must condition in line 64 to 65, which is not clarification.
Yeah, so this is so resolve mode always had 2 modes. It just didn't say what the return values were.
Then it
Yeah.
probably needs to be an additional EIP.
Yeah, maybe that would be better.
I really like the idea of being able to have new EIP superseding the old one, like IETF.
Yeah, I feel like you should be able to transition from final to withdrawn if you're the author.
No, they probably want to keep the number because they trying to ask people to implement the number.
Yeah, but we do have withdrawal reasons, so you can put like, goes from final to withdrawn with a withdrawal reason of superseded by whatever. So maybe we do something like that.
Isn't this just a small errata?
Not errata though.
Yeah, so this is so the return values from the function resolve mode were never specified in the original version.
That's an error.
Yeah.
The specification was incomplete. That's an error.
Well, yeah, I guess. You could implement it. You just could return whatever you wanted. So, like, this is. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I won't really go one way or the other on it.
But I think we have other little things stacked up for lack of an errata process. Like broken links in ERC 20.
And Sam, you are on the author list, right?
That's a historical remnant, but yes.
So I guess it would be better for someone else to make.
I think hard coding the values must be done in a superseding EIP rather than this one, because obviously it changes the specification a bit.
Were these restrictions in fact there and followed? Is this a specification of what in fact was being done? Or is this a new restriction that would break existing implementations?
So I'm only aware of one implementation of it, and it would have only returned one of these two values, but
Okay.
it would break a theoretical implementation. But I don't know if that's important or not.
I'm not worried about theory. I'm worrying about fact, existing code. And myself, if it breaks nothing and the existing implementation behaves this way, then there was a failure to fully specify in the EIP. That's an error and it's easily fixed. If there's actually ambiguity between implementations, then it looks more like you need to supersede to accurately describe the existing practice. This just seems like a small error to me.
So I guess
So we,
I think the safer option for everybody would be to make a new EIP. So maybe we ask the author if they're willing to, and if they're not, then we revisit this discussion again.
I'd want to know if the author considers it a small error or if they think a new EIP makes sense also. I don't see from the point of view of our policy that it makes a huge difference as far as precedent or anything like that. But it's certainly an opportunity to introduce an errata section.
The two things that we can take out from this conversation here is like probably we need some policy around errata, and one suggestion that Sam mentioned about an option for author to move from final to withdrawn, because as of the current process, that is not possible. Withdrawn and final both are the terminating statuses, and we do not have any connection over there. So if it's okay, we can go with like more discussion on either of these policies, and maybe we can bring it in future meeting. But for this particular pull request, if my understanding is correct, not many people are in favor of approving it. That means this pull request cannot be merged. Is that a correct understanding? And in that case, maybe we would like to inform author. Yes, please go ahead.
I'd like to hear from the author. I'm basically in favor, but we need to introduce a section called errata so we can simply say in the errata that, that there is a change. That would be my preference if that is agreeable to the author. Because I think producing whole new EIPs gets confusing. People remember the numbers, associate them with the EIP, and this isn't like such a big change. And it's not a breaking change, especially. It just isn't going to break anything.
Well, so it would break an implementation that obviously didn't follow these new requirements. So I think that is something to consider here. But yeah,
but there is no such implementation.
True, but like, who are we to judge whether an implementation exists or not, right? Like, we might not know, and
you do your best to find out, and you make the change, at which point, if anybody follows the older version, they're making a mistake. I'm not hard over on this. It's just a whole new EIP for a few words. and the few words are only there to document how it actually does work, seems overboard. At the other end, a change that actually would break existing code requires a new EIP so that people can continue to follow the old EIP and not break their code. It just like you can continue to conform to an older version of a language standard. The old standard's still there and still a standard. It's just no longer the current standard.
And
I
think
suppose,
the,
yeah.
no,
Yes,
I
go
think the
ahead.
equivalent here would be just a new EIP number, and then the old one's still there, the new one exists.
Yeah, it's a judgment call, which is why I really would want to hear the author's judgment. Sort of we're asking the author to submit a new EIP, and they may say, no, I'm done with this, you know.
I suppose if someone can drop a note in the PR, that way we will
Yep,
get to
that's what I'm
hear
doing.
what author, thank you, what author has to say in this direction. Very well. I think that's about it. We concluded item number 1. We can move on to the number 2, which is discussion continued from past meetings. I do not see Panda on the call, and I'm not sure if anyone else has any information about the EIP number bot. Do we have any progress? I remember in the last meeting we discussed that we started, but has to be stopped. Okay. So we will leave it as is, and we'll try to check with Panda where we are on the EIP number bot. Very well, moving ahead to the next item here, which is EIPS Insight. I believe in this month we have received 4 EIPs in the final status, and there are 8 EIPs proposed as draft. Out of 4, I guess 3 are still open as last call. For last call proposals, I suppose this is the last chance to add any kind of addition if they have any suggestion for the author. Proposals are ERC 5570. The last call deadline has passed. It was yesterday. And other proposals are ERC 5169, client script URI. But obviously the deadline has crossed. So if author did not receive any kind of suggestion, they can go ahead and create a pull request to make it into the final status. And there is this recent added proposal, which is the ERC 5008, which has entered into last call recently. And the last call deadline here is June 1st. So people listening to this call, if you have any thoughts about any of the proposals listed here in this SACMD for the changes or suggestion, this is the last call for you as well. Please go ahead and suggest that to author, because we would try not to make any changes to final proposal, as you may have heard in our earlier conversation. And yeah, that's all from the EIPS Insight. We did have EIP editing office hour yesterday. It was really great. We saw a lot of new authors joining our call, trying to understand the process. Many thanks to Sam Wilson for organizing this, like for leading this and explaining, answering questions. I can understand sometimes it can be overwhelming coming so many authors, but we didn't get chance to look into all. I believe there are 4 or 5 open items that were not covered in the past meeting. Any of the editors on the call, if you get a chance, please take a look at that. So we should be able to close it before the next meeting. But for new authors who are trying to draft a proposal and have any kind of question with respect to either process, documentation, They are trying to understand because it is their first time. Please join us on the EIP editing office hour. We hopefully be able to help you out, and you can propose your proposal as a standard. That's all about item number 4. And I'm just quickly taking a look from the summary of the past meeting. In the past meeting, I think, yeah, so EIP part numbering, we already discussed. Panda is not on the call today, so we can let it be. The bug with 5507 was resolved, so it's covered. And the reviewer working group, Victor shared something. Yeah, Sam, sorry, I suppose I missed.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one feedback item I received from the core devs is that we aren't giving them enough opportunity to provide feedbacks and some changes. One of them is the suggestion to not number EIP drafts and only assign them a number when they move to review. So they're asking if we can provide meeting summaries somewhere in the ETH R&D Discord, but not in the All Core Devs channel. Yeah, so just so you know, I'm going to be posting an update there after this call.
Awesome. I mean, we do have EIP channel here on ETH R&D Discord. We can make use of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm going to put it.
Okay, perfect. So I'm sorry, I think I missed this part. So is the suggestion that we should not put EIP number while the proposal is in draft status? It should be only allocated in the when it moves to review?
Yeah, that's something that Panda's been pushing for.
But that could be like very difficult because there are so many proposals. I can actually name ERC 4337, which is still in the draft status. I mean, I understand that is one of the most advanced proposal, but that is still in the draft status. Just imagine that proposal
Yeah,
not getting
I know.
numbered.
So I think it could work if we like. Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this. Like being able to have a number as soon as there's something merged is really nice, and you can refer to it right away. But on the flip side, it would probably encourage people to move to review faster, which is kind of the point of the review. Like you really shouldn't be implementing a draft EIP because like it might not even be fully written yet. So if we make it so that drafts are unnumbered, authors might be encouraged to move to review sooner, which might be a good thing. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind on this yet myself.
But I think this is gonna have like, another kind of discussion. What would be the PR, the EIP number? Should it be the PR plus some wordings? And obviously this either bot has to do or
Yeah,
architect again.
Yeah, so the bot would definitely do it, and it would just be that the highest number, the highest existing EIP number plus 1.
Mhm.
This could just push the problem to things moving to review before they're ready to review.
Oh,
Just to-
agreed. Yeah.
Just to get them a number, because if they don't have a number, you can't talk about them. There's no unambiguous way to refer to a proposal that has no number.
Yeah, so maybe we keep the number. I don't know, but it's definitely something we need to talk to Panda about since he's the one making the bot.
Is there
Right.
really an overload of core proposals?
No, definitely not.
And does anybody force the core devs to pay any attention to a proposal that's not under review?
They do get brought up on all core devs.
But-
yeah.
But then, if they get brought up, it's not our problem. They don't need a number to be brought up. They don't need to be an EIP at all to be brought up.
If I remember correctly, according to the process, the network upgrade process that we follow, if a proposal is in draft or review, that can be proposed for consider for inclusion, like whether accepted or not. That is a separate discussion, but that can be proposed even if the status is draft. And I somehow agree, like Greg, what Greg mentioned. If we enforce having a EIP number at the review status, then the draft status would be as good as the idea was earlier. So now people do not think of idea, they just make a draft. Now, eventually they will just come up with idea, and that would not be an idea, that would be a draft, and the draft would be the review.
It seems the core devs are making their problem into our problem. And it's, we're just a publisher, and our system works best if we give things a number as soon as they enter our system. And then they keep the same number all
Oh
the
no,
way
core
through.
devs want the number all the way through. That's my
Okay.
understanding.
Then they just shouldn't waste their time on drafts. They don't
Wait,
want
so
to.
sorry, are you saying that you want a number all the way through, or that you don't want a
I
number all the way
very
through?
much want a number all the way
Okay.
through. And if the core devs don't want to deal with drafts, they shouldn't deal with drafts.
Oh no, the core devs don't care at all what status the EIP is in, as far as I
Okay.
can tell. Yeah, no, they just want a number to talk about it.
Okay.
It's Panda, Micah from back in the day, and myself a little bit, who was toying with the idea of not having a number at a draft. But if the view is overwhelmingly that we want numbers, I'm totally okay with that too.
Yeah, I prefer looser standards for draft, and I'm not worried about running out of numbers.
Yeah, I don't. There's only what 600 or 700 EIPs, so
Yeah, it's just what it is. It's how we operate. But we purposely have low standards for drafts, because we don't ever again want to get dragged into political and legal issues about whether we should or should not have published a draft. And nobody else is here who went through that, but I was. So it was very unpleasant. We literally had an editor who left because he believed it would be illegal for him to publish a particular EIP.
really, that's a story.
Yeah. So he was Japanese. Japanese.
Yeah, I remember the storyline there. That was, I think, somewhere in 2019, if I remember it correctly.
This was part of why we have a bot, to get to get ourselves out of the loop for that the original, originally getting a draft into the system was a purely editorial function and partly automated. So it wasn't a big legal issue up front. So there's a reason not to impose too much on getting things into draft stage. As far as that goes, and there's a reason to give things a number and keep it.
Okay. I think we have good context. Probably that's a discussion point. Whenever Panda is around, we will try to bring it up on the EIPIP meeting, how we would like to design the EIP number and at which status it should be provided when bot would start allocating. Yeah, I think that is also, we can make it optional. That's another good suggestion. Yeah. So if I get it correct, Sam, you're going to post a summary to the ETH R&D Discord channel at EIP, EIP editor channel, whatever it is. Yeah, all right, awesome. Cool, thank you. And I think that is all from the items listed here. Anyone has any final comment to add?
Yeah, if I may mention that thanks Poja, and thanks many editors who helped. We had a first our ERC dev call yesterday. It was quite good. I think we start to sense some sentiments of peer review. We get people suggesting each other. That's a great start. And just want to say a big thank you, but and also look forward to have you join next time. I think Pooja will present when she is ready, and then also Sam, I already put you on the sharing the WTF for next time as featured topic. So yeah, if there is other suggestions for how it could be run or who can come to talk, that would be great. And also feel free to point authors of EICs to this venue if they want to seek peer reviews.
The recording of the last meeting is added to Cat Header's YouTube. And yeah, I will also share the link on the meeting update channel at Cat Header's Discord channel.
Right, I shared it on Discord, I shared it on Twitter, and the repository meeting notes as well. So thanks so much for also helping out with the recordings.
You're welcome. Very well, thank you so much. We have 2 minutes. If anyone has any final comments to add. All right.
And yeah, just want to mention that I do proposed a status change the criteria for ERCs. It's on Ethereum Magician a post. I want to talk about it next time, sign up, but for editors, I love to get your attention and maybe comment on it before next time, so I can present it to you and walk you through and get feedback. Thank you.
If that is planned for next EIPIP meeting, it would be really great if you can add it to the agenda, which I will create it right after this meeting. So yeah, that would be good. We can bring it to the next meeting if you would like.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining today. Hope to see you in 2 weeks. Have a good one, everyone.
See you.